live human being. Not your role, not your responsibility, not the pastor.
It began as a typical Sunday service filled with worship, music, and the powerful preaching that Pastor Charles Jenkins was known for. His voice carried conviction, and the congregation was deeply moved. But in a matter of seconds, everything changed. His hand trembled on the pulpit, his voice began to falter, and then, without warning, he collapsed forward. The sanctuary erupted into chaos. People screamed, others rushed to his side, and prayers filled the air. Trained medical volunteers in the congregation ran to help while ushers tried to restore order. Paramedics were called immediately, and within minutes, flashing lights surrounded the church. What had started as a morning of inspiration became one of fear and confusion. As Pastor Jenkins was carried out on a stretcher, tears filled the room. For many, it felt like time stopped. Their spiritual leader, the man who gave them strength, now lay unconscious before their eyes. The race to save his life. Outside the church, the scene was heartbreaking. Members held hands in prayer circles, crying and pleading for their pastor's survival as paramedics worked inside the ambulance. The once joyful building now echoed with sobs and silence. By the time they reached the hospital, Jenkins was in critical condition, but alive. Doctors immediately began emergency treatment, and word quickly spread through the city of Chicago and across the gospel community. Inside the hospital, his family gathered, refusing to leave his side. His wife remained calm, yet heartbroken, asking for privacy while encouraging everyone to pray. Meanwhile, church leaders arrived, trying to comfort the members who were overwhelmed with worry. The hospital's first statement confirmed only that he was in critical but stable condition, and that silence fueled both hope and fear. No one knew what exactly had caused the collapse, but everyone understood one thing: this was serious. The internet explodes. In the age of smartphones, the incident spread almost instantly. Videos from inside the church went viral, capturing the panic and confusion after Jenkins fell. Social media exploded with prayers, messages, and emotional tributes under hashtags like #PrayForJenkins. Thousands of believers across the country sent support, while gospel artists and pastors called for national prayer chains. But alongside the love came speculation. Some claimed it was exhaustion. Others whispered about hidden health issues or stress from church politics. The lack of official updates left room for rumors, and before long, the story grew into a storm of mixed emotions. For many, Jenkins wasn't just a pastor. He was a symbol of strength and faith. Seeing him vulnerable was unthinkable. What made the moment even harder was how suddenly it all happened. One day, he was preaching powerfully. The next, he was fighting for his life in an ICU bed. Hidden struggles behind the sermon. As more details surfaced, insiders began revealing what few people knew. Pastor Jenkins had been running on empty. In the weeks leading up to the collapse, he had been juggling travel, preaching engagements, music projects, and church meetings with little rest. His close friends reportedly warned him to slow down, but his passion for ministry kept him going. Like many spiritual leaders, he carried the weight of thousands of people's faith, often hiding his exhaustion behind his smile. The truth was that even those who inspire others sometimes forget to take care of themselves. This was more than a medical crisis. It was a wake-up call about the hidden toll of leadership. People began to realize that pastors are not immune to burnout, stress, or fatigue. For Jenkins, this collapse was not only a health scare, but also a reflection of the immense burden he had silently carried for years. Hope, amid the uncertainty. Inside the ICU, doctors worked tirelessly, while family members prayed through the night. Church elders stayed close, organizing prayer chains and sending updates whenever possible. Small signs of progress, a slight movement, a whispered word, offered glimmers of hope. At one point, Jenkins reportedly opened his eyes briefly and whispered, "Tell the church I love them." That moment broke everyone who heard it. His spirit, even in weakness, still reached out to his congregation. But doctors warned that the next 24 hours would be critical. Outside, candles lit up the church steps as people gathered to sing hymns and hold vigils. The outpouring of love showed how deeply he had touched lives. Yet beneath the hope was an uneasy truth. If Jenkins survived, he would need time, rest, and recovery. For a man who lived to serve others, stepping away would be the hardest battle of all. The growing debate and rumors. While faith-filled prayers filled the air, not everyone focused on hope. Online debates grew louder by the hour. Some questioned why the church wasn't being transparent about his condition. Others speculated about stress, overwork, or even emotional struggles. Critics began arguing that modern churches demand too much from their leaders, expecting them to be endlessly available, perfect, and strong. Supporters defended Jenkins fiercely, calling the gossip disrespectful and urging everyone to focus on prayer. The divide reflected a larger problem within faith communities. The pressure placed on pastors to be invincible. Insiders admitted that Jenkins had ignored signs of fatigue, brushing them off as minor, determined to push through for God. Now, people began to wonder if his collapse was a divine reminder, not only for him, but for the church, that even spiritual giants need rest. The debate turned the story from tragedy into reflection. A church facing its greatest test. Back at Fellowship Church, the atmosphere was heavy. The pulpit stood empty for the first time in years, and the congregation struggled to imagine Sunday without their beloved pastor. Behind closed doors, church elders held urgent meetings. They discussed how to manage worship services, how to respond to rumors, and, most painfully, how to continue if Jenkins needed a long recovery. The idea of leadership without him felt impossible. Yet this crisis forced them to confront a difficult truth. No ministry should depend entirely on one person. His collapse revealed both the strength and the fragility of their community. Leaders began planning ways to distribute responsibilities, care for one another, and ensure the ministry could stand even in his absence. It became a lesson in unity, that true faith is not just following one leader, but standing together when that leader falls. A nation united in prayer. By the next morning, the story had reached every corner of the gospel community. Prominent figures like Bishop T.D. Jakes and Kirk Franklin shared emotional messages, asking millions to pray. Gospel choirs held special concerts in his honor, dedicating their songs to his healing. Churches across America added his name to their prayer lists. For once, everyone, from megachurch pastors to small congregations, was united in faith. The love pouring in was overwhelming. Outside his Chicago church, people stayed through the night, singing softly, candles glowing in the cold air. Strangers hugged, cried, and held hands. Even amid uncertainty, faith remained their anchor. This outpouring of love showed that Pastor Jenkins's ministry had reached far beyond the walls of his church. His message of hope and resilience had become a national prayer. His suffering had brought unity in a way sermons alone never could. A warning for the modern church. As the days passed, Jenkins's recovery remained uncertain, but the conversation his collapse started only grew louder. People began reflecting on what it truly means to serve God in a demanding, fast-paced world. Many saw his near tragedy as a divine warning, a reminder that even the strongest need rest in balance. Pastors across the country spoke openly about burnout, depression, and exhaustion among church leaders. One elder from Fellowship Church said, "Maybe God allowed this to remind us that even our strongest soldiers need to stop and breathe." His words resonated deeply. Jenkins's story had moved from being a headline to being a message. It forced churches everywhere to look inward, to protect their leaders, and to share the burden of ministry together. Destiny had taken an unexpected turn, transforming pain into purpose and crisis into a call for compassion and change. The legacy of strength and reflection. Though his future in the pulpit remained uncertain, one thing became clear. Pastor Charles Jenkins's collapse had changed more than one life. It awakened the church to the realities of pressure, fatigue, and faith under strain. His brief words from the hospital, "Tell the church I love them," became a lasting symbol of his devotion. The story reminded everyone that spiritual leaders, no matter how strong, are still human. His struggle united thousands, inspired reflection, and renewed a sense of gratitude across congregations. Whether or not he returns to preaching, his impact will live on through the lessons his pain revealed. That leadership is not about endurance alone, but about humility, balance, and care. In the end, what began as a terrifying collapse became a movement of empathy, faith, and rediscovered humanity. The church would never be the same again,